Welcome to episode 20 of Michael Reads from a Book, in which I read from a series of books. Today's choice is The Land by Vita Sackville-West. I came across this book for the first time for a grad class where we were looking at the literary history of Kent. We wound up not actually studying this book, which was a great $30 spent. But I've never been able to quite pawn it off on anyone, so here it is. I'm giving it a bit of a hard rap. Anyway, this reading is from Winter, the first book, but near the end of the first book, because my favorite part of the entire thing is the way this particular section concludes. This is the part where Sackville-West starts going through a series of rural figures. And this is the last of the group, the yeoman. His heart is wider than his purse, take all in all, but narrower than each the portals of his speech. Few words must serve his turn, for he's sagacious who lives taciturn, and airs no noisy cunning of his trade, but keeps his private purpose deeply laid, gives neighbours nothing of his confidence, and takes his counsel of his own good sense. No wise man utters what he inly knows. Certainty in a loose, uncertain world is far too firm a treasure. Wiseman goes jealous and wary, keeps darkly furled his small particular knowledge. So he plots to get the better of his land again, compel, coerce, sets in trim allots, renews the old campaign. His mind is but the map of his estate, no broader than his acres fenced and bound, within the little England of his ground, squared neat between the hedgerows of his brain, with here Lord's meadow tilled on a hill, and Scallop's coppice ending in a gate, and here the Eden passing by a mill, and there the barn with thatch, and here a patch of gorse, and there a patch of iris on the fringe of a pond, and here brook orchards band safe with grease. All this he sees, and sees nothing beyond the limits and the fealty of his lease. Tenant of his inheritance, brief link in life's long circumstance, descended from that nameless ancestor who cut a holding in the serried weald, where drove of swine rooted for acorns, and underneath the oaks, Andreria's sole yield when Drake played bowls at Plymouth, and the rare coach with the cumbrous spokes, trundled with the single clay wet tracks, to Sussex with drawn blinds, or journeyed back to London on affairs of state, the fine heraldic blazon eloquent on the door, makers of land once of the nameless line, that fenced and tilled and overcame the waste, and cut the necessary gaps, and shaped the field's slow pace into their permanent design. Each field with local name not marked on maps, how come by, how forgotten, long since forgotten. Clements, the roundabout, black mead and bitter docks, rough shepherd horses' hose, and trows the path that grew into this lane, bending between the hedgerows where convenience claimed a road, for country road is natural growth, with here a curve skirting a tree felled long ago, a swerve to let the rattling harrow pass, the wain with trust and swaying load lurch safely by and empty pass again. He tills the soil today, surly and grave, his difficult wage to earn. Cities of discomfort, of discontent, the sickened nerve are still a fashion he will not learn. His way is still the obstinate old way, even though his horses stare above the hedge, and whinny while the tractor drives its wedge, where they were wont to serve, and iron robs them of their privilege. Still is his heart not given to such encroachments on a natural creed, nor wholly given though he bows to need, by urgency and competition, and vanity to follow with the tide. Still with a secret triumph he will say, tractor for sand, maybe, but horses for clay, and in his calling takes a stubborn pride that nature still defeats. The frosty science of the cloistered men, their theories, their conceits, their faith within him still derides the pen, experience his textbook. What have they, the bookish townsmen in their dry retreats, known of December dawns, before the sun reddened the east and fields were wet and grey, where they have gone another day begun, by tracks into a quagmire trodden, with sacks about their shoulder and the damp soaking until their very souls were sodden, to help a sick beast by flickering lamp, with rough words and kind hands, or felt their boots so heavily and so swear, with trudging over cledgy lands, held fast by earth, being to earth so near. Book learning they have known. They meet together, talk and grow wise, but they have lost, in losing solitude, something, an inward grace, the seeing eyes, the power of being alone. The power of being alone with earth and skies, of going about a task with quietude, aware at once of earth's surrounding mood and of an insect crawling on a stone. It's a pretty heavily romanticized passage, obviously. And speaking as someone who grew up in a rural community with a lot of farmers, not entirely an accurate depiction, but I still love that final stanza, the whole power of being alone. Good stuff.